The ground shook before the first blast. Smoke rising, shadows swallowing the hills. In the chaos, he saw her armor of gold and silver, hair white as snow, eyes glowing like deep water. That moment changed everything. And before we dive into how, make sure you subscribe and stay until the end, because this story will take you far beyond the battlefield. The ground shook before the first blast was even heard. Dust rose in thick waves, covering the once green hills in a dull, gray shadow. Soldiers ran, shouting orders no one could follow. Above, the sky was a strange mix of smoke and light, half dark from the burning clouds, half glowing with the strange blue lines of alien ships. Commander Elias Ward had seen battles before, but not like this. Not against them. The aliens weren't what humans imagined from stories. They didn't look like monsters. They didn't even roar or scream. They moved with silence, their steps like whispers, their weapons glowing with quiet death. And their leader, she was nothing like the rest. Elias first saw her through the smoke. Her armor was a mix of gold and silver, shaped to her form with sharp edges that caught the light. Her hair white as snow was braided and draped over her shoulder. And her eyes, he had never seen eyes like that. They glowed, not like fire, but like deep water lit from below. She wasn't aiming her weapon. She wasn't shouting commands. She just stood there, watching, almost as if she was waiting for something. Then the earth cracked open. A blast from somewhere behind Elias threw him to the ground. His ears rang, vision blurred. When he looked up again, she was closer. For a moment, they stared at each other through the smoke. Her expression was cold, unreadable, but her gaze, it was fixed on him, not as an enemy, but as if she had seen him before, a soldier beside. Elias fired. Blue sparks flew where the shot hit her shield. She didn't flinch. Instead, she turned her head slightly, almost disappointed, and then walked away into the fog. The rest of the battle blurred into noise and chaos. Elias fought until his arms burned, until the order to retreat came through. And even then, as he fell back with the others, his mind stayed on those glowing eyes. That night, the camp was quiet except for the wind tearing at the tents. Elias sat alone, staring into the flames of the fire. He told himself it didn't matter, she was the enemy, nothing more. But deep inside, he knew something had changed. Not in the war. In him. Far from the human camp, in a ruined temple lit only by starlight, the alien leader removed her helmet. Her name was Liara. She touched the faint mark on her cheek where the human bullet had struck her shield. And for the first time in many years, she almost smiled. Elias couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw hers, those glowing orbs that seemed to cut through smoke, fire, and fear itself. He told himself it was just battle shock, that his mind was playing tricks. But when the scouts returned, at dawn with news of alien movement near the ruins, his heart pounded in a way it never had before. The ruins were dangerous ground. Old stone corridors, crumbling towers, and shadows that swallowed anyone careless enough to enter. Command ordered a small team to investigate, and Elias found himself volunteering before he could think why. He told his captain it was duty. He didn't admit it was curiosity. By midday, they reached the first archway of the ancient place. Wind whistled through the broken walls, carrying the faint hum of alien machinery. Elias moved ahead quietly, boots crunching on gravel, his rifle steady. But with each step deeper, he felt it eyes on him, watching. The team spread out, searching. One soldier called out, finding strange markings on the wall, symbols no human could read. Another found alien footprints, light and narrow, moving deeper into the ruins. Elias followed them without a word, and then she was there, standing in the center of a hall lit by a shaft of sunlight breaking through the roof. Her armor gleamed faintly, her hair catching the light like silver threads. She wasn't holding a weapon. Her hands were at her sides, her head tilted, studying him like an ancient puzzle she couldn't solve. His men raised their rifles instantly. She didn't move. Elias raised a hand. Wait. He wasn't sure if he was speaking to her or to his own soldiers. She spoke first, her voice calm, carrying a strange accent. You follow me. It wasn't a question. It was truth. He didn't know what to say. His training screamed capture or kill. But his gut told him this wasn't a trap, not yet. And when she took a step toward him, the sunlight caught the faintest curve of her lips. A smile so small, it almost wasn't there. It was the first time he realized the war might not be the most dangerous thing happening to him. Elias signaled his men to stand down. They hesitated, eyes flicking between him and the alien woman. But the sharp edge in his voice left no room for argument. One by one, the rifles lowered. The alien leader, Liara, though Elias didn't yet know her name, studied him as if memorizing every line of his face. The air between them felt strange, heavy, almost electric. He had faced soldiers, assassins, even execution orders. But never this. Never someone who could make him forget the sound of war just by standing in front of him. Why are you here? He asked finally, his voice low, her head tilted slightly. You already know. The answer made no sense, yet it lodged deep in his chest. She turned and began walking deeper into the ruins. Every step echoed, and without realizing, he followed. No one stopped him. The others stayed behind, unsure if they were watching the start of a negotiation or a betrayal. They moved through a narrow stone passage until they reached a chamber, lit only by blue light pouring from strange crystals embedded in the walls. It was silent here. No gunfire, no voices. Only the steady rhythm of their footsteps. Liara stopped beside an ancient stone table and rested her hand on it. This place was ours long before your kind came, she said softly. There was no anger in her voice, only something heavier. Lost out. Elias stayed quiet. He didn't know why he felt the urge to listen instead of argue. She looked at him, and for the first time, her eyes softened. You fight for orders, I fight for what's left of my people. It should have been the moment he drew his weapon, ended it, claimed a victory. Instead, he said, then why not kill me now? Her answer was almost a whisper. Because you looked at me and did not see an enemy. Something shifted then, something dangerous. He knew if his commanders found out about this conversation, they would brand him a traitor. But in that chamber, under the cold blue glow of alien light, Elias made a choice he didn't fully understand. He would keep her secret. For now. The chamber's stillness shattered with a low, metallic hum. Elias froze. It wasn't the sound of human tech. It was sharper, colder, like the air itself was turning into a blade. Lyra's eyes narrowed. They followed you, before he could. Ask who. The shadows moved. Figures stepped from the dark corridors, alien soldiers, their armor jagged and black, faces hidden behind mirrored masks. They carried weapons Elias had never seen before, glowing with a faint, pulsing red light. They didn't look at him. They looked at her. One spoke in a language Elias couldn't understand, the words clipped and venomous. Liara replied in the same tongue, her voice low but firm. The tension in the air was suffocating. Elias's hand went to his rifle on instinct. But Liara gave him a single sharp look, a silent warning. Not yet. The leader of the masked soldiers stepped forward, speaking again. This time, Liara's reply was short, final, and whatever she said, it wasn't what they wanted to hear. The first shot came without warning. A bolt of red light slammed into the stone beside her, shattering it into dust. Elias didn't think he moved. He grabbed her arm and pulled her behind the stone table as the chamber erupted in fire and light, the air filled with the high-pitched scream of alien weapons. Elias fired back, his rounds sparking against the masked soldiers' shields. Liara crouched beside him, her own weapon unfolding from her armor like a living thing. glowing with the same blue light as her eyes. They fought back to back, moving in perfect rhythm without a single word. Every time he fired, she covered his flank. Every time she struck, he guarded her side. It was instinctive, like they'd been fighting together for years. When the last masked soldier fell, the chamber was a haze of smoke and shattered crystal. Light. Elias leaned against the stone, breathing hard. Liara stood over one of the fallen soldiers, staring at the broken mask. Her voice was quieter now. "They weren't here for you. They were here to take me back." He looked at her, realization settling in. Back to what? She met his gaze, and for the first time, her voice trembled. To a cage. The smoke from the battle still lingered, curling through the broken chamber like ghostly fingers. Elias could hear his team's voices in the distance shouting, searching. They were close. Liara stepped toward him, her face pale but her voice steady. "If they find me here, your war will end one way my people will burn yours until nothing is left." It wasn't a threat. It was a fact. Elias glanced toward the sound of his soldiers drawing nearer. He knew exactly what would happen if he called them in. They'd capture her, drag her to command, and call it a victory. But something deep in his gut told him it wouldn't be a victory at all. It would be the beginning of something far worse. He looked at her, really looked. The faint mark on her cheek from the earlier fight, the way her fingers flexed as if ready to run at the slightest sound, and the way her eyes held that strange mix of defiance and sorrow. She wasn't just an enemy leader. She was someone carrying the weight of an entire dying people. "Why tell me this?" he asked. Her lips curved, not quite a smile. "Because you looked at me in the ruins and didn't raise your weapon. That is rare. For your kind." The voices outside grew louder. Boots scraped against stone. His men were seconds away from rounding the corner. Elias's hand tightened on his rifle, not in attack, but in decision. "Go," he said. His voice was low, urgent. "I'll cover your trail." "You were never here." For a heartbeat, she didn't move. Her eyes searched his face, as if trying to decide whether this was a trick. Then she stepped closer, close enough that he could feel the faint warmth of her breath. "You are making a choice you cannot undo," she whispered. "Yeah," he said, glancing toward the doorway. "I know." Without another word, she turned and vanished into a narrow side passage, her silver hair disappearing into the shadows. When his team burst in seconds later, Elias stood alone in the chamber, weapon raised as if scanning for threats. "They're gone," he told them. It was a lie that settled heavy in his chest. And yet, somehow, it didn't feel wrong. 3 days passed without sleep. Elias kept his head down, filed false reports, and tried to convince himself it was over. But the war didn't slow. In fact, it burned hotter. Command ordered an assault on the far border alien stronghold territory. It was supposed to be decisive, final. For Elias, it felt like walking into a storm he couldn't avoid. The battle raged from the moment the first shot was fired. Fire lit the sky, ships roared overhead, and the ground shook like it might split apart. Elias pushed forward through the chaos, every step a blur until the moment he saw her. Liara stood on the far ridge, surrounded by her warriors. Her armor was scarred, her hair loose and wild from battle. She looked like a queen carved from the storm itself. And then, she saw him. The world narrowed to that single glance. No gunfire, no shouts, just two people who had no right to be looking at each other in the middle of a war. But the spell broke when a blast struck near her position. The explosion threw her from the ridge. Without thinking, Elias ran. He found her in the dust, struggling to stand, blood on her cheek. Her warriors were scattered, some dead, others retreating. She looked at him, confusion in her eyes. Why was he there, in the middle of enemy lines, helping her? "Can you walk?" he asked. She nodded, though her legs trembled. They moved together, weaving through the smoke and debris, avoiding both human and alien fire. When they reached the cover of a ruined wall, she sank to her knees, breathing hard. "Why?" she asked again. Her voice was softer now. Elias crouched in front of her, his own breath ragged. "Because I'm tired of choosing sides that only want more graves." For a long moment, she just stared at him. And then it happened. A real smile. Not the faint, cautious curve from the ruins, but a full, unguarded smile that seemed to push back the smoke around them. It was warm and sad, and full of something that felt dangerously like hope. "Elias Ward," she said, as if tasting the name for the first time. "If we survive this, there will be a place for you in my world." He didn't know what her world was, or what it would cost him to reach it. But as the sounds of battle closed in again, he knew one thing: that smile was worth every risk he had taken.